And welcome back to Coast. Linda Moulton Howe with us, who continues more with her great stories. Linda?
Thank you, George. On October 4th, Lori Moriarty, who manages my Earthfile social media, emailed me that a fan saw something weird happen in the video of the stream, the live stream. So I saw a video that Lori sent me that was slowed down. It was weird. I sent the puzzle to Photoshop video analyst I've worked with for years. At first, I thought maybe it was an insect. It was over on like something coming through the window up to the top of a bookshelf. And he did a video loop that you can see right now, all of this, at my Earth Files report. What are the smoky fogs sometimes linked to afterlife returns? You can see the whole story, and you can see these loop videos, which are really strange. And the reply that I got back from the Photoshop analyst was that he thinks this is truly anonymous. And then I asked that second week, I asked my Earth Files YouTube channel audience if anyone had ever seen smoky fog like what was in my office. And believe it or not, a second one of these, whatever they are, came between my hands and up to my right shoulder on October 17th, adding to the mystery of what is coming in and out of my office. And people began writing me emails about their own experiences with the smoky fog. Is it like ectoplasm? I do not know. This is extremely translucent, and when I started reading the letters, I began to see how heartfelt that there were people who were telling me they had never mentioned any of this to parents, to loved ones, to children, to parents, none. But I started receiving these emails, and one came from he had been a retired airline ticket agent, and his name, he gave me permission to use, is Charles Hazard. And he let me say, he said, you can use my name and that I'm now from Sun City Center, Florida. But what you're going to hear took place in Arkansas in 2008. Thinking about all of this is provoked by 2 episodes of a strange smoky fog in my office when I was working in live stream. And that's what provoked him. And here now is Charles Hazard talking about what happened to him in 2008 from his now Sun City Center, Florida home.
This was in the spring of 2008, and I was preparing that morning for a group to come in the next day. I was mowing the lawns for the camp area on a riding mower and cleaning up the facilities, things of that nature. So at the end of the day, after dinner, I was ready to go to bed as soon as the sun went down. I was very tired. So after showering, I got into bed. It was dark by that time. I can't remember about what time it was, maybe 8:30 in the evening. I got into bed, put the covers over myself, and just laid there and looked outside. The leaves on the trees were not fully out yet, so I had a very good view of the night sky with a few stars that I could see. And then suddenly I was getting ready to close my eyes, and suddenly I opened them again, and through the window, I could see this misty gray fog drifting in through the window, and I was just mesmerized. But the thing about it was that in this dark bedroom, it was luminous, and I could see light within it, and it was three-dimensional. It was swirling and slowly kept coming towards me. It looked like it was coming right for my head. And I was just frozen with fascination. I didn't know what to think. Then, as it reached my forehead, I could see in my mind's eye three-dimensional lighted hieroglyphs passing by my field of vision. I was mesmerized by these hieroglyphs, and the feeling that I was getting was a feeling of euphoria and oneness with this living thing that was surrounding me. And then at the same moment, everything was happening at the same time. At the same time, I was getting all this information that was almost like answers to questions that had been asked throughout millennia. And they were all being answered at the same time. Like, all of these answers were coming. I wasn't asking the questions. They were just coming to me and being answered simultaneously. And I don't know why this was happening. I was just going with it. I don't even know how long this lasted. It could have been just a moment, but it seemed to go on forever. And I didn't want it to end because the feeling was so loving.
Can you describe the shape of the hieroglyphs that you remember vividly and try to give us an impression of what kind of information was coming to you? And was it like a word voice in your head telepathically?
No, there were no words. There was no sound. The hieroglyphs were almost like I was looking straight ahead, and they were coming towards me and then going past the side of my head. And I could see peripherally these hieroglyphs, but they had the same texture as the fog did, with shadow and light, but they were luminous at the same time, and they would just float by me but kind of move at the same time, like they were rocking back and forth as they were passing by my head. And as far as the information I was getting, it was just almost like a download of information that was so quick that I was not able to grasp anything that was being given to me. It was just a feeling that I was getting. It was almost like I knew every answer to every question, like I was this superhuman genius or something that had all the answers to everything in the universe. It was indescribable. It's really difficult to explain. It felt like, to me, it wasn't for now, at that moment. It was for something that was being given to me, but I wouldn't remember any of it afterwards. But it was for some time in the future that I was supposed to recall this information, because it was like it was being given to me, but I couldn't decipher it.
Did you have, though, any subtext in your mind or your soul about who would be doing this and why for the future?
No. The only thing I could think of was that it may be because of my past experience with, ever since I was a child, I've had psychic dreams, dreams of having relationships with an entity that was giving me instructions. I can describe the entity to you as a very thin, very white, pale entity. I couldn't see a face. All I know, it was very skinny. It had very long fingers.
How many?
I don't know how many fingers it had. It could have had 5. It could have had 3. I just remember one finger because I had the feeling that it was touching me with one finger, and it just freaked me out in the dream. I remember the environment being very luminous, very white, almost to where you were squinting your eyes. But I remember this being, this is the strangest thing about it, I was standing before it. It was sitting in a very large throne-like chair, but it was so thin it seemed like a rope was just dangling from midair with ropey arms, and it was just really creepy.
You've had this as a repeating dream.
Yes.
And the ropiness that you are describing, the extreme thinness, is it possible that this very white being is in fact a reptile, a snake?
I got more that it was more like an insect than a snake, because it had a texture to its skinniness. It was like, you know what an insect wings look like? They're kind of transparent, but you can see those veins or whatever through it. When I lived in Florida, when I was a kid, we lived there for a short time in Jacksonville, and I was always outside, and I loved collecting animals and things like that. But there were huge praying mantises that would hang out on the bushes. The thinness of those arms and the shape of its neck and its body.
Are you standing in front of this praying mantis-like essence? Are you standing in front of it and it is in some sort of a crouched or sitting position?
I want to say it's a sitting position because I see this big, huge throne-like chair that it's seated in. It's very, very, very large.
And so this is perhaps an 8-foot tall praying mantis.
It possibly could be.
Anything specifically coming into your head from it as you stand there?
I think I can smell it. I think it smells like rotting wood or something to that nature, like offensive to the nose.
Do you have a sense that there's any kind of clothing or garment?
No, I don't think there was any clothing.
And the color that is this praying mantis in front of you?
Very pale, almost like albino, very pale.
And there are praying mantises that can be white.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
Do you see anything in the eyes?
I don't remember the eyes. It's almost as if I couldn't look at them. I think I was terrified to look at them. But I had a feeling that this entity was imparting something to me because I wasn't afraid. It was almost like it was giving me instructions. Very strange. I don't remember a voice. It was almost as if it was telepathic.
And that the being, the praying mantis essence, seemed to be glowing like a pure white?
It wasn't glowing. It had mottled skin, but it was very white. You could tell that it had a lot of texture. You know, if it was white, it had like freckles, I would say. You know, how there would be like mottled skin, like someone who had freckles, or almost like an albino salamander skin.
It sounds like you are describing a reptilian skin, not a praying mantis skin.
The texture was like that, yeah.
But the form was like a praying mantis insect.
That's how I would describe it. Because of the arms, they were jointed, and they were long, but you could tell that they were jointed very strangely. As I reached puberty, I remember I started having a lot of groin pain. At one point, I did find a spot on my groin that was like a puncture area that blistered. I just had the suspicion that maybe they were doing something with me to recover sperm or something.
Based on everything that you have experienced with the praying mantis, what would you speculate could be coming further?
I think everything is speeding up now. Something is about to happen. That's the feeling I get. I get this feeling of urgency. I get this feeling of it's too late to do anything about our current situation, and something is coming to either fix it or maybe help some of us. I don't know.
But whatever it was, you would put into the category of something positive and protective.
I do. Absolutely do. I've had many dreams over the past few years involving a lot of water mostly.
How does the water emerge?
I've had many dreams of tsunamis from the ocean. I wasn't surprised when I saw that film of the Indonesian tsunami that killed so many people.
What sets off all of the tsunamis and flooding?
I have a feeling something to do with the rotation of the earth, that there's going to be like a shift or a jolt, kind of like you take a glass of water and you accidentally knock your elbow and the water splashes out from the rim of the glass. That's the feeling I get from that. I have this foreboding feeling.
That everything is going to get more violent and wetter.
Yes.
Now, last night...
Strange story, Linda, isn't it?
Well,
Wow.
it is, and things keep being woven. This started with the issue of, I was asking people if they had had any kind of childhood out of body in the ages 4 to 6, which is amazing to me how many people have been provoked by that. That seemed to overlay the appearance of whatever this white we'll call it foggy smoke or smoky fog that has appeared in my office twice. That led to my asking for whether people had had these kinds of foggy white stuff. And that led to Charles Hazard and other emailers who are saying that this is not the only person. Last night on my YouTube channel, I had a dialogue with my audience about has anybody, whether they're an abductee, an experiencer, a meditator, have they had any insights about water, a lot of water affecting the planet between now and 2026. And that was a year that had been presented to me by a real whistleblower, physicist science, who said that he had worked on a project having to do with this exact time period between 2018 and 2026 in which there could be some, either a natural cycle or something that is going to snap. It's like what Charles Hazard, when he was saying, I feel like it has to do with the rotation of the Earth, that there's going to be like a shift or a jolt, and that it would cause tsunamis and tremendous amounts of flooding. And I have had now several emails. I'm going to be doing stories on them about exactly this kind of thing and raising the question, could there be a natural, strange cycle interacting with planets in our solar system that could relate to Noah's flood that is written about in Genesis? And that is how woven and complex all of this seems to be going, that every single question is leading to answers, that people are raising more issues, and scientists are also coming forward and saying that they have information about this. And so tonight, if there's anybody listening on Coast, if you are in the military government whistleblower category or a human abductee category, and you have any information about huge water that could end up affecting our planet. If you Google UFOs in ancient paintings, several dozen images and websites will emerge, including a 1561 AD woodcut found in Nuremberg, Germany. It depicts a large black sword-shaped aerial vehicle in the sky where colorful aerial spheres, cylinders, and rods surround an illustration of the sun as if it were watching a battle of different technologies over the Nuremberg, Germany landscape. And that's 457 years ago. Another famously strange painting is a wall fresco from 1350 AD entitled The Crucifixion by an unknown artist 668 years ago. And that has a crucified Christ in the center. On either side of him in the sky are angelic beings with wings and two odd oval-shaped aerial vehicles, each containing a human-like figure. The being on the right side of the crucified Christ seems to be looking back from his craft to the being in the craft behind him on the left side of the crucified Christ. This artwork hangs in a monastery in Kosovo, Serbia. Then if you go back 1,432 years to 586 AD, another crucifixion painting by Dutch artist Meister de Rabula, Evangelium, depicts white and dark spherical UFOs in the background sky, also on either side of a crucified Christ. The UFO on the right has a humanoid face painted on it, and this now hangs in a Florence, Italy museum. On October 10th, 2018, I received the following email from a retired U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant named Tony Guy. He also sent me his DD-214 to prove his military background, which I have included at the end of my Earth Files news report tonight. His email contained a life experience that he wrote up for me entitled, quote, "The experience that made me a believer that we are not alone." And it began, "Hi, Linda, my name is Tony. I would like to tell you about something that I saw as a black child. I am 57 now, but at the time of the incident, I was 4 or 5 years old in 1965 or 1966. I was in my bed one night, and I had woke up and could not go back to sleep. Here now, from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to tell in his own voice what stunned him as a child and haunted him to this very day is retired U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Tony Guy.
I lived in Dayton, Ohio. I was about 4 years of age. I lived with my mother, and she had a best friend that she lived with in a 2-bedroom apartment. My mother had 2 children, and my mother's friend had 2 children, and we were all about the same age. It's a 2-bedroom apartment, and it's 2 levels. You have to go up the stairs to get to the 2 bedrooms and the bathroom. And I was in my bed sleeping along with my brother and 2 other kids, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I had trouble going back to sleep, and I'm just staring in the dark. Couldn't go back to sleep. So I decided to get up out of the bed, and I went to the window, and I was just looking out the window, and it was very quiet. I didn't hear any cars. That's how I knew it was very late at night, because I didn't even hear a car go by. So I'm looking around, and I happened to look up in the sky, just looking around, because there was really nothing to see but a grassy field in between the apartments. And so I look up, and I see a light, a bright light in the sky. I assumed it was an airplane, that same light that I was looking at, because it was the only thing in the sky. I noticed something was coming down, and by the time I noticed it, it may have been about, I'd say, 50 or 60 feet off the ground. The light that I was looking at came down. It was an orb. What I noticed about it was one half of it was soft white color, and the other half of it was neon green color, like the glow sticks that you see at the concerts when they have the glow sticks that are neon green glow sticks.
Right.
It looked like that. And I was saying to myself, this looks like a perfect circle, but it's a little off, as if you cut the perfect circle in half and then just pull it apart a little bit.
A little wider in the middle than it would have been if it were a perfect circle.
Yeah. And I noticed that where the 2 lights met in the middle, the soft white light and the lime green light, there was no bleed over. You could clearly see where the neon green ended and the soft white began. And this object, it looked to be as thin as a balloon.
When you say it was like a balloon, you mean that the surface was translucent and you could see through it?
Yeah, I could clearly see through it. It was no metal, nothing like that. It was more like a see-through balloon. So thin, it's like you're looking at a see-through balloon.
And what are you seeing?
What I'm seeing is a person standing inside the soft white part wearing a gown, and he's looking up. He's just standing there looking up, like he's looking up into the stars. I don't know what he's looking at, but I could clearly see this, and I'm saying to myself, look at that. That's a person. And keep in mind, I'm no more than 25 to 30 feet from this event. The only reason I didn't climb out that window that night was because I was like, if you knock out this screen and go down there, your mother's going to beat you. A child thought, this is what I was thinking. I was like, man, I want to go, but Mom's going to beat me if I do this, I know she is, but I just didn't understand as a kid the significance of this.
Okay, so this is very close to you as you are looking out this window. Describe the person that you are seeing in the white side of this circular orb.
Well, I give you my thoughts at the time. This is the conversation I was having to myself. I was thinking, man, this person looks like God. And then I thought, I'm not going to say that unless he actually tells me he's God, right? And then I thought, man, he sure looks like the guy in the picture at church.
Describe everything.
The gown he was wearing, like when you're looking at the soft white, I noticed it was bright, a brighter color than the white light. You can tell the difference between soft white and bright white. I can clearly see that the gown was white, very bright white. He was looking up, and he was Caucasian, and he had a brunette hair, and it came down to, I'd say, his shoulder length, and he was just standing there looking up.
Was his hair straight, wavy, or curly?
I'd say it was straight, just like you see when you see these motion pictures of Jesus of Nazareth. It was like that.
Were you close enough to see the shape or color of his eyes?
No, I wasn't close enough to see that.
And what was the shape of the gown?
From what I could see, it looked like it pulled over his head. It all looked like one solid piece, and it went all the way down to his feet.
Could you see his feet in this spherical craft?
No, I couldn't.
So how do you know it went down to his feet?
Because I could see that where the orb, where he was standing, it was at the very bottom of it. I could clearly see the whole sphere. It's kind of strange because I could see him in it, but I couldn't look in the green part and see those apartment buildings on the other side.
So from 25 to 30 feet, as a 4-year-old, looking out your apartment second-story window, you are able to look through the surface of the white side of this spherical orb or craft and see the man inside the white side.
Yes.
But you could not see into the lime green, and you couldn't see past the lime and the white.
Yes.
And the fact that it blocked out the apartment buildings that were beyond it seems to suggest that even though it appeared very strange to you, that it had to have been solid matter or at least blocking photons to have blocked out the buildings that were behind it.
Yes, this sphere is floating down as if you would blow up a balloon and toss it in the air. That's about the speed this thing was coming down. And I was thinking that it was going to land. I need to get down there and ask this person some questions, you know. But as it got toward the ground, I watched it go into the ground like it wasn't even there.
Like the ground was not there?
Yeah, like the ground wasn't even there. Was there 1 minute, and then I could see it piece by piece just going into the ground just as easy as you could pass through water. That was it.
Did you see anything change on the surface of the craft or him as it went into the grassy ground?
No, I literally saw no change. I saw no change in the grass and stuff being moved. It was just literally as if the ground wasn't there.
Now, you are 4 years old watching this. What is the very next thing you do?
The very next thing I did was I said to myself, this is interesting, and I guess you can disappear, travel through stuff like it ain't there. And I went back to bed and finally went to sleep.
You sent me by email a written story about this that you called the experience that made me a believer that we are not alone. Can you expand on what it was of being 4 years old and seeing the sphere with the man in it that left you with this residue that you would write me in October of 2018, the experience that made me a believer we are not alone?
Well, first off, what I want to say is when I saw this sphere, there was no controls that I could see anything besides what it was, a little bit bigger than the person that was in it, right? And I'm wondering to myself, how is he controlling this thing? How is this being done? I haven't seen that from that day to now. Nothing even similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
That told me right then and there that we are not alone, because who shows up in the hood wearing a gown, floating in an orb? It's just crazy.
And can go into the grassy ground as if the ground were water and the sphere was just sinking through the surface.
Yes, it's like what you see on the sci-fi channels or something, you know, people passing through walls or dematerializing from one point to another. I can believe it now because I literally watched somebody pass through the earth as if the earth wasn't there. No stopping, just right through.
Do you still feel that this was Jesus Christ in this sphere?
My thoughts were, I feel that I'm not going to say that unless that person would have came out and told me it was him. I can only tell you what I saw. I can't explain it all or whatever.
As we're talking in October of 2018, what do you think today at age 57?
I think it's obvious that our government isn't telling us the truth about a lot of things. And I think that all of this stuff, I've never seen aliens per se, meaning the Greys or any of them, but I think it's pretty credible now because you have the internet and people are posting flying craft, flying cubes, stuff that don't fly is flying with no moving parts. And I think our government knows a lot, way more than what they're telling us. And I think it all goes together, this UFO stuff and what the government is doing.
And that all of the ancient history having to do with religious figures could be advanced technologies being used by advanced intelligences in this cosmos.
Exactly. The aliens or the extraterrestrial, whatever name you want to use, they don't want to tell you about it. And so many people are being punished because of something that they saw. Why are you worried about what somebody saw if it wasn't true?
Yeah.
What does that tell you? Something going on, ain't it?
Yeah, and it's very real and very important.
Yeah, it's very real.
So,
Jeez.
When you think about history where these discs and beings and spheres have been depicted in, dozens of oil paintings, like one of them was over 1,000 years old. And then you jump to what I was exposed to at Kirtland Air Force Base when I was working on that home box office documentary back in 1983. And it was an alleged presidential briefing paper, and one of the paragraphs said, 2,000 years ago, a being was placed here by the extraterrestrial biological entities to teach Homo sapien about love and nonviolence. And then there were two more sentences, and the last sentence I've never forgotten. And all three referencing the three beings also associated with the first one were all killed by Homo sapien. How, why, what is the truth of the religious histories, the political histories, the scientific histories, and the possibility that the avatars of history have actually been time travelers trying to help us or to help this solar system, not being understood at all. And that one of the problems in evolving and the evolution of Homo sapien has been that we weren't given truths, and we got down on our knees to entities in front of us who pretended to be or claimed to be gods, and they were never gods. And now we are back around in another cycle. In 2018, going forward, the Space Force is going to be formed by 2020, according to this administration. And what is the Space Force being formed in such a rapid way? What is coming? Where are we headed? And this time, no matter what, if it's just me and 1,000 other people on the planet trying to tell people the truth, we have to get past all of the lies and policies of denials. And that's why I do the work I do.
And you don't stop, Linda.
Nope. I don't want to.